Lyney is one of the strongest DPSs in Genshin Impact, yet unfortunately for him, he has heavy competition in the form of Arlecchino. So today, I thought it'd be fun to compare the two, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses that one holds over the other to decide whether Lyney is still worth pulling for in a meta where Arlecchino exists. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, we're going to have a couple of grounds for evaluation, including their damage, free-to-play accessibility, high investment, playstyles, team options, what they have over each other, and whether it's worth getting the other if you already have one. Without further ado, let's go. This section will be relatively short because it's mostly laying the foundation for what we're working with here. Lyney and Arla's damage at C0 R1, assuming similar artifact investment, will be quite similar across the board. However, Lyney Vape has the potential to do more damage than Arla in single target, whereas the Magician's Dad definitely beats him in AoE. But if we were to average it out, the damage is similar. What's interesting is the actual accessibility of said damage and how many average players will actually be able to achieve those numbers, but we'll touch on that later. For now, know that at C0 R1, when you average out their performances in most abysses, their damage numbers are the same. At C2 R1, things shift more in Arla's favor, and at C6 R1, obviously Favre is better because he has the best C6 in the entire game. For now, I'm going to work with the assumption that Lyney is being played correctly. Since we're all on the same page in terms of their outputs, let's get into the nitty-gritty when it comes to comparing these two. When it comes to their prospects as free-to-play units, I think Arla takes the cake for a couple of reasons. For the record, when I say free-to-play, I'm assuming C0 with a 4-star weapon. Lyney's still excellent on a 4-star choice, but Arla can do better in a pure free-to-play team while using a 3-star such as a refined white tassel. Don't get me wrong, both of them seriously want their 5-star teammates, but I find that a complete budget Arla team will perform better than a completely budget Lyney team on average. In fairness, you can form his monopyro comp with Xiangling, who's a free 4-star, but using Farina instead is such an astronomical increase to his team's damage. Even in his most optimal teams where you want to use Xiangling with him, you replace Kazuha with her and keep Farina in there, because that's just how important vaping his nukes are. Arla does better on cheaper weapon options compared to the Magician, since she has better options available to her, and I'd say she's a more accessible first 5-star than Lyney. He's still well worth your time even on a 4-star weapon, but Arla's easier to immediately get going. However, things spring into Lyney's favor once we head into Dolphin investment. I'll assume C0R1 to C1R1 with their best installed teams here. This is where their performances start to level out. You'll find that Lyney, when played correctly, is capable of clearing boss chambers faster than Arla. His strength is incredibly impressive at this stage and can rival his dad's. I would say that once you can get him either an Aqua Simulacra or First Great Magic, that is when you're going to start feeling like he's an insane breakthrough unit. Arla in comparison is nothing to sneeze at either. I'd say that the main thing that the Knave has over him is consistency. Sure, Lyney will clear single target chambers faster, but Arla will get you more consistent clears across the board. I'm gonna call it a draw when it comes to C0 to 1 R1 investment. Both are highly impressive at this stage and have their own merits. Lyney has min-max potential, whereas Arla has a more leveled quality to her. When we go into pure whale territory, there's no question about it, Arla makes everybody else in this game look like a joke. Lyney's constellations are really good too, don't get the wrong idea, he has some very impressive ones. But the best way to put Arla C6 is that a single normal attack from her is a C3 R1 Raiden's entire initial slash. While I'm exaggerating a bit, you get the point. I'd pick Arla if you're a Mega Whale looking to C6, but don't be put off Lyney too much, as he's still an incredible speedrunner at C6. Here's where the competition really comes into play, how the two feel to use. This is the main reason as to why most fellows will always feel like Arla does more damage, because she does a whole lot of it and is far easier to access than her sons. Her kit mostly boils down to simply being an A spam, whereas, okay, if Father's gameplay is as simple as the plot of your average Pokemon game, then Lyney's gameplay is Honkai Impact 3rd Lore, or Rain World, if you know what that is. A lot of people don't like playing Lyney because his hidden A6 is called You Have to Reset Nerd, because you missed your vape nuke thanks to Farina's Hydro application inconsistencies, or because you messed up something in his rotation by just a little bit. This dude is undeniably frustrating to play in his best installed team if you want him to be good. By the way, if you're good at timing, then the vape inconsistencies don't happen, but that's something you have to get good at. However, much like what 5 Nouvelette says in Rain World, you're trapped in an endless cycle of frustration, but when you beat that cycle, you ascend. Mastering his gameplay is one of the most satisfying experiences in the entirety of Genshin. You will get result with a capital R. His damage potential is honestly hilarious. It's comically good, man. I truly cannot think of a better analogy. Lyney is quite simply Hollow Knight or Rain World, the most annoying thing ever until you get good, then they turn into some of the best experiences ever. That's what this magician fella is. Yes, you will reset a lot. Yes, you will have to commit to a lot of trial and error when learning how to play him. Yes, the damage output you receive in turn is more than worth it. In fact, worth it is somewhat of an understatement. As I said earlier, a well-played C0R1 Lyney can even challenge his own father. However, much like those 2 gems of games that I mentioned earlier, Lyney isn't for everyone. This experience isn't for everyone. It's a whole lot of min-maxing only to be slightly better than his main competition at C0R1. For most people, it will generally feel better to just use Arla. A badly played Lyney does a lot worse than a badly played Favre, simply due to how basic her gameplay is. Speedrunners make up an incredibly small portion of the community, and a comfortable Abyss experience will be more important for most people. Even some speedrunners don't enjoy the reset-heavy nature of Lyney, despite the insane potential that he carries. This is a double-edged scythe, however, as while the Knave may be simpler, learning to play Lyney would be a whole lot more rewarding. Another thing is that this is all under the assumption that we're vape nuking. A shielded Lyney and mono pyro still beats every other pyro DPS aside from Arla while feeling way more comfortable to use as opposed to forcing yourself into using vape nukes. But if we assume best in slot, there's a lot of good and bad to be said about Lyney's playstyle, but that's what makes him interesting in my opinion. I'm a big fan of notoriously difficult indie games. In fact, Hollow Knight is my favorite game of all time. So I think there's a lot of value to be had in a difficult playstyle, but if you genuinely could not care less about the fact that he can clear maybe 10 seconds faster than Arla can, first off, fair enough. Second off, then Favre is a much simpler option who offers nearly as much damage, if not more in some situations, while being more accessible to the average player. I'm not surprised that people undervalue Lyney so much. There are plenty of people who believe that he's a monopyro DPS that plays like Ganyu, when in reality he's a vape nuker that will both trap and free you from an endless cycle of frustration. Even in his monopyro teams, he's more of a nuker. I love both of their playstyles, but I do think that the average player will want to use Arla, especially if you're on a laggy lower end device, as doing complicated rotations is going to be much more difficult for you. When it comes to teams, the funny thing is that they both share the exact same comp archetypes. Vape, monopyro, Emily Burning, and then the weaker choice of Overload. There are some others, but these are the main ones. When it comes to vape teams, I've technically already listed the main points in favor of and against Lyney. Hard to play, but rewarding. As for Arlecchino, she does the most damage here, plain and simple. You use Yolon with her if your Lady Farine is at C0 due to healing issues, but if your dear Hydro Archon's at C2+, then you can justify using them together. Vape is the strongest for both of them. However, remember, one plays like Mario Kart, the other like your average Undertale modded battle. With Monopyro, Lyney takes the cake here, but that's to be expected considering that he receives additional benefits from running it. This is what Genshin intended his kit to work with, despite the fact that they ended up creating another Pyro Vape DPS in the end, so I'm not surprised that the Magician wins here, but the Knave still does fantastic here, don't get it twisted. I'm gonna hand Burning over to Lyney because he still receives 80% of his Mono Pyro bonuses while replacing Shangling with a unit that does way more damage. It's a fine team for the both of them, but it's more of a damage upgrade for Lyney because a well-built Emily does more damage than Shangling, especially considering that Bennett's in the team, whereas Arla isn't getting any special benefits in particular here. I personally think that Overload Lyney feels balls to play, and I don't know who is playing this over Vape or Monopyro. Arla feels significantly better here, but while she wins this round, why aren't you playing Vape or any other team instead? I would say Favre's teams are better across the board, but there are specific instances in which Lyney shines over her if you know what you're doing. So, to summarize, Lyney has a higher ceiling at C0 to 1 or 1, his playstyle is debatably more rewarding, there is an active skill progression when learning how to operate him, his damage is honestly ridiculous, and he's cute, which is a major plus. As for Arla, her damage is consistently good, she beats him in terms of whale investment, she is far more accessible to the average player, she's a better free-to-play unit, she's more friendly to poorly running devices, and she's really cool, which is a major plus. So now for the real question. If you have one, would the other actually add any value to your account? If you own Arla and are interested in Lyney, as this is more likely considering how few people own him, seriously consider whether you're bothered with his gameplay or not. Yes, he can do more damage than her, and considering how many bosses we have in the Abyss, there are plenty of ways to test that upon pulling for him. I expect the upcoming Abysses to be really good for him, considering that Chaska is also a single target DPS, and this current Abyss that we've got right now feels kind of poopy pants with him. But if you aren't willing to enter the land of resets in order to play him well, and if you aren't willing to go through some trial and error, stick with Arla. I'll just say this now too, if your Arla has investment, including an above C2R1, yeah man, you don't need Lyney. This really is more of a free-to-play to Dolphin dilemma. Vice versa, if you own Lyney but no Arla, if you're looking to go C2 to C6, yeah, his dad will be a lot better, but if you're already a really good Lyney player, I'd say pulling for Father means that you'll have a comfortable option in Abysses where he doesn't feel that good, and if you don't feel like entering Reset Eternity that day, then she can get the job done for you with relative ease. If you don't play Vape, or if you consider yourself to not be a great player, then Arlecchino will be a massive upgrade, because so much of the Magician's value lies in how magical your skill level is. There is merit to owning both in my opinion, but I'd say that if you're a C2 to 6 whale, or if you're a free-to-play Dolphin that doesn't care for ultimate min-maxing, no need to get Lyney. But if you're interested in playing what would hypothetically be the strongest Pyro Vape DPS against boss content optimally, then you should pick the guy up. It's honestly comical how strong both of these units are. For the record, I believe that they are both S-tier DPSs. Unfortunately, Lyney is always going to be stuck in a limbo of not being truly appreciated because he's rather unpopular and most folks don't want to try Vape on him. Even shielded Vape is something to write home about. With that being said, both units are truly powerful. While it may seem like there's no reason to consider the other if you own one already, each has their own merits and reasons as to why you would want to get them. Hopefully this video was able to tell you whether Arlecchino or Lyney would be better for your personal playstyle. This has been Juice, signing out, and at the end of the day, Nuvalet is better than both of them, so settle down!